Before you open up your heart to anyone, there are 3 secrets you must understand about vulnerability. Because if you get vulnerability wrong, it can actually destroy connection instead of deepening it. So the first secret is all openness is not necessarily true vulnerability.
Now they can get confused if emotional exposure is not emotional connection. Most people mix this up completely. They share too much too soon, and then they confuse emotional exposure with emotional connection. And then they wonder why it all falls apart at the end. Today we're going to unpack what real vulnerability is, why it often leads to pain instead of connection, and how to build true emotional intimacy that lasts. Stay tuned to the end, as number 3 might completely shock you.
You know, Quinton, the word vulnerability has become such a buzzword, and it's thrown around all over the show the last couple of years. You hear it in therapy, in self-help, definitely in the relationship context, but even in organizational development with leadership. Vulnerability, be vulnerable. But very few people really understand the true meaning thereof. You know, the problem is people view vulnerability as you must open up and share your feelings. But it's more than just spilling your guts and your emotions and telling your life story, isn't it?
Most definitely. Many people open up in a relationship too quickly and too fast. The reason they do it, they crave connection, they want to be understood, and they want to be seen.
Exactly. And another common example is when physical intimacy happens too early on or very early on. Picture this. You and I go out on a date. The chemistry is intense. The attraction is there from the start. Everything is exciting and it flows, and we just completely feel drawn to each other. And before we know it, whether it's the first date, the second, the third, we end up in bed together and we have this wonderful evening together. And the next day you shut off, have to rush out, and I don't hear from you for 3 days. Silence. If you've experienced that. And then you start questioning yourself. What was that? Was the sex that bad? What happened? Was that all you wanted? And you got it, now you're gone. So how many of you have experienced that? And you're wondering what went wrong? What happened? Now, the thing that happened is because of the physical intimacy, your brain has been tricked to believe that there's an emotional connection. Now, when you want that emotional needs to be fulfilled, you know, cuddle, wake up, talk, hold hands, do something together, quality time, connection, all the emotional needs, there's just emptiness. And that then creates an even stronger craving for that connection. And now, 3 days later, a week later, you get a text from the guy and you're there like a bear. And guess what? Rinse, repeat, here we go again. And we end up in the cycle of push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. And where does that leave you?
And that's exactly where the confusion basically comes in. People is looking for connection, and they confuse that passion with emotional intimacy. And now people see that connection and that passion, they confuse it. What they're actually experiencing is vulnerability without safety. And the word for that is fragility.
Okay, so let's break it down, because we're throwing 4 words around here now. So we're talking about openness, we're talking about intimacy, we're talking about vulnerability, and now we're introducing fragility as well. So Quinton, let's start with, what is openness?
Openness is when you start sharing experiences with someone. You start opening up a part of yourself. So now you share your stories, you share some of your values, you share some of your beliefs with someone else. The reason you do it because you want to be seen. You want to connect with that individual.
Okay, and then what is fragility?
Fragility is what happens when that openness gets used against you. Let me give you a practical example. I've seen this so many times in relationships playing out. I share maybe with my partner that I've cheated in a previous relationship, and that I'm carrying a deep sense of guilt and remorse for that cheating. Now, later on in the relationship, she keeps that in the back of her mind. And then there's a place where she feels insecure. And because she's feeling insecure, she's bringing this up. And she says, how can I trust you? Because you've done this before. In that moment, the vulnerability becomes fragility. And now I'm not feeling safe. And the challenge is, later in the relationship, she wants me to be vulnerable. But how can I be vulnerable now if my vulnerability was not kept and held with safety?
It's such a real example. And I'm glad you shared the male perspective, because I think that's often forgotten, that men, even unbeknownst to themselves, can also feel emotionally unsafe with another person. But I often see this with women as well, where they, women are told you have to be vulnerable, you have to open your heart, you have to open up, share your heart. And then what happens is you go out there. So again, imagine you are dating and it's the early stages, and now you show up with your whole emotional being and you share the depths of your soul with this person before they've actually earned the right to that depth. And then the guy runs away. And often the women are then left feeling rejected, ashamed, and ladies, let's be honest, angry with this guy. How could he just leave after me being vulnerable? But ladies, I want to ask you, put yourself in that person's shoes. How would you feel if you barely know a person and they come with their whole life story and trauma and all emotions? You turn around and say, this guy's got mental issues or he's got issues. But we don't want guys to say that about us. What I hear so often is, this is me, this is my emotions, and if he can't handle it, he's not the guy for me. But it's a bit of a tall order. Don't you think it's a bit unfair?
Totally agree. Let me explain it from a guy's perspective. You don't actually even know this person, and now they're already sharing lots of emotions with you. And many times in the guy's world, we battle even to deal with our own emotions. But now you're oversharing your emotions with me. And that creates an expectation that I actually need to deal with your emotions as well, while I can't even deal with my own emotions. And that is many times just after having 3 dates. As you've mentioned before, physical intimacy doesn't lead to emotional intimacy. And I think many times people battle, they confuse physical intimacy with emotional intimacy. What physical intimacy creates is emotional entanglement.
Okay. So let's just clarify. We are not saying it is wrong to be open. We are not saying it's wrong to share your feelings. The challenge comes in if you open up and share those feelings without the foundation of safety. So true vulnerability only works if the space between the two people is safe to hold.
Intimacy, in fact, is actually a slow growing process.
That brings us to the third secret, and probably the most challenging one to accept. And that is that true intimacy takes time. It can't be rushed. Intimacy is not like lust and attraction that's instant. It's not love at first sight. It's a slow process.
Most definitely, it's a slow growing process. Intimacy is something that evolves. I like to use the analogy of a pearl in an oyster. And that pearl in the oyster becomes a treasure. But it's a slow growing process.
Let's recap. The 3 secrets you need to understand about vulnerability before you open up is all openness is not true vulnerability. And vulnerability without safety is actually fragility. And true intimacy takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Knowing that now, how do we practice true vulnerability how do we build emotional intimacy without falling into fragility?
Here are 2 tips that makes all the difference. Number 1, safety before sharing. Don't confuse this passion, this chemistry, this emotional oversharing, spiritual talk with safety. Safety is something that builds through time. Safety gets measured with consistency and empathy.
So wait, let me understand this. So I meet this guy. He's hot, he's intelligent, he's got a stable job, and the conversation just flow, and there's something special about us and him, and there's this magical connection. And, feel like we've got this soul connection. It makes me feel comfortable enough that I want to share, and I want to be close to him and share and be vulnerable. But what you're saying is I must hold back.
Let me give it some more context. If you go on a first date, you actually want the person to like you, right?
Yes, of course.
Therefore, you automatically put your best foot forward.
Yes.
Of course, it's human. And he or she is also putting automatically their best foot forward. A human being exists out of many facets. Therefore, a human being is far more complex. You can't know a person after a couple of days, weeks, or months.
Okay, so am I hearing you correctly? I can feel the excitement. I can feel the chemistry and the attraction and flow with it. But I must hold on a little bit longer to that vulnerable inner belly of mine.
Yes, your vulnerability is like a precious pearl. It's your own life experiences, your own feelings, your own emotions, your own wounds. You're not going to share that precious pearl, that treasure, with someone just because there's a connection. It's so easy to lose yourself in that passion, that chemistry, that you actually miss possible red flags. The second tip is to build emotional awareness. You can't really be safe with another if you're not even connected to your own inner world. And to be connected to your own inner world, you need to understand your own wounds. You need to understand your own pain. You need to understand your own triggers.
So in other words, vulnerability without self-awareness is actually just self-exposure. And if you have that self-awareness, if you have a sense of your inner emotions and wounds and patterns and being, and then you can communicate from a far more grounded and conscious space, and not from an emotional desperation, not from a wanting, even unconsciously, it's not necessarily consciously, wanting something from the other person, because you're grounded in yourself. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I usually have a saying that says, you can only hold for another what you can hold for yourself. You can only sit with someone's pain to the degree you can sit with your own pain.
So emotional intimacy, that deep soul connection, grows when both people are doing the inner work. It's not instant. It's not like lust and attraction. That's instant. This takes time.
Yes, and that's why I love the word intimacy. Because if you break the word intimacy, you'll see it actually is into me see. It's into me see. And that is the magic. And that is what true intimacy is. It's you can see beyond the fears, beyond the wounds, beyond the person's weaknesses, the person's positive traits, but you can still hold the space for them to be and to heal without judgment. And for me, that is the ultimate of unconditional love.
And that unfolds as trust builds. So if you are someone that opens up too quickly and then get hurt and feel unseen, remember this: vulnerability is not exposure. It is connection through safety and awareness. And if you felt that this message resonated with you, that you got some value out of it, please share with somebody who might need to hear this as well.
Until next time, take time to build safety within yourself so that your vulnerability can become your strength instead of your wound.
Thank you for listening. And if this resonated with you and you would like to learn more about smart relationships, like and subscribe and look out for more videos on relationships. I must have caught